Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the best brain body tools so you could feel, look, and do your absolute best. And folks, on my LinkedIn, I have a title about what I do, Executive Brain Coach. And sometimes people ask me, like, what is it? What is executive coach? What is executive brain coach? And is there a difference? So executive brain coach, in my understanding, in my definition, is someone who helps people to train their executive function of the brain. And what is executive function? Reading to you from Wikipedia. In cognitive science and neuropsychology, executive function, collectively referred to as executive function and cognitive control, are a set of cognitive processes that are necessary for the cognitive control of behavior, selecting and successfully monitoring behaviors that facilitate the attainment of chosen goals. Executive functions include basic cognitive processes such as attention control, cognitive inhibition, inhibitory control, working memory, cognitive flexibility. Basically, folks, to sum it all up and to make it simple, executive function of the brain is everything that you might associate with goal setting, planning, and goal achieving, especially connected to the fact that in order often to achieve our goals, we need to inhibit a lot of impulses or behaviors that do not contribute to our goal achieving, right? If, for example, you want to lose weight and you want to get fitter, so you need to restrict some food choices, you need to do workouts when you don't necessarily want them to do, and all of that has to do with executive function. But also executive function is about creativity, creating different works of, art or different projects. It all has to do with executive function. And so as an executive brain coach, I help people to train these facilities, like how to increase your motivation, how to decrease procrastination tendencies, how to improve focus and flow state, to get to work and get it done when it's done, instead of going down the rabbit holes, or let me explore another one of my curiosities, so let me go and chat with a friend of mine instead of doing this challenging work that I need to do. And then it's also about creativity, because creativity is also a process. It has certain steps that if you follow them, you have a much better chance to get into creative insight. Like, for example, did you know that creativity is more about increasing your inputs, basically what you expose yourself to, what you experience in life, what you read, what you listen to, what you learn. So the more of those different experiences you accumulate, the more creative you are. Of course, if you also allow your brain sufficient time to connect different dots and ideas, and not always busy or scrolling social media, right? So creativity as an executive function also has a process, has a set of parameters that when you change them, your creative output, what you do creatively, improves and increases. So that's what executive brain coach does. Or, for example, I did a couple of classes last week teaching people how to improve their focus ability. There is this, very popular term these days, neurodivergent. Different people whose brain seem to be working differently, with whether that's ADD, ADHD, whether that's something on autism spectrum or OCD, or a lot of different things. And some of them are considered to be more disorders. Some of them are more just special ways that the brain processes real world. And I worked, I did a couple of classes with people around focus, and those people have a definition as neurodivergent for themselves. And what I realized doing these classes is that focus is a skill. It doesn't matter whether you're neurodivergent or you consider yourself a normal person with a neurotypical brain. If you do certain things like having a lot of distractions in your environment, having a lot of, tabs open on your computer, having a lot of notifications from all the different sources, from your phone to your smartwatch to your laptop, all of that, no matter what kind of brain you have, will make your focus difficult to impossible. And I think this term neurodivergent made a lot of people lazy, in a sense that now people think, well, I'm just different, and that's why it's hard to focus. But maybe you're just careless and sloppy with your habits when it comes to managing your distractions. And that's why you have such hard time focus. If I did what a lot of people do these days, having all the notifications on, having a lot of stuff open on my computer, not taking care of different errands, having people knocking on my physical and metaphorical door all the time, not having time for deep work when I'm not interrupted. If I haven't done all of that and I was just sloppy with all of my habits, I would be just as ADD, ADHD as a lot of people who diagnose with that. And why I'm sharing with you folks is I want you to understand the power of your own choices to manage your environment and the results that you get. And we're going to get deeper in a second into a couple of brain use, a couple of pieces of research that will amplify this idea of the power of your environment and your power to design that environment, on how your brain works, how it analyzes and processes reality, and what kind of executive function you have, either a trained one or untrained one that causes a lot of problems for you in your work and in your life. So from executive function to neurodivergency, it's a complex conversation, folks. That's all I'm saying. And just because you might qualify or be diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergency doesn't mean you now can just be lazy, eat whatever, do whatever, and expect that, well, it is what it is. That's how my brain works. Your brain can work much better no matter what, when you actually put some work and attention to it. Now, from that to our brain use. Brain use you can use. That actually a phrase from bebrainfeed.com, I believe, or .org, but bebrainfeed, look them up. Great stuff about the brain. So today we're going to talk about what's new and recent in the world of neuroscience and all the related scientists that have an influence on your performance, your function, how you process everyday world. So let me start with coffee, our favorite morning drink. Is your morning coffee really an energy boost or just a placebo? So it's been written about in many online publications now. This one is from Medical News Today, for example. To summarize what's been happening, researchers compared the neurological effects of coffee and caffeine consumption. So caffeine you can consume in different drinks or in pills. And they found that coffee, but not caffeine consumption, increases brain activity linked to visual processing and higher level cognitive function, that executive function. So they found that coffee worked, but caffeine alone didn't. The findings mean that some key benefits of drinking coffee may not be related to caffeine. So in this study, folks, they compared, I'm not going to read you throughout the whole study, but I want you to understand that they found that coffee, but not caffeine, is linked to visual processing and higher level cognitive function, your brain working better on different cognitive tasks. And the limitation of the study is they didn't compare coffee with caffeine to decaf. They just compared coffee, the morning drink people enjoy, and caffeine in its, I believe it was pill form. Need to actually look through the study, and they found that yes, caffeine without coffee and coffee changed the way our brain works in terms of it's more ready for work versus just being in its wandering state. So caffeine and coffee both did that, but only coffee improved certain aspects of cognitive and seemed to be motor performance as well. And so what it says, folks, a lot of times in our culture, we just focus on one nutrient, like one vitamin or one specific aspect of our health or our diet, right? Like cut the fats and everything, or cut the carbs. That's the popular one these days, and everything else is going to be okay. But actually, when you look, for example, at people who follow low carb diet, it's not that they reduce the carbs that made the biggest difference. It might be just as well that they improved the overall quality of diet and started to be more active and worked on their sleep, and a whole bunch of things happen, right? And so the effect of better weight loss was not just the reducing of carbs, even though if you ask the people, yeah, I just don't eat carbs. And a lot of people don't really understand what carbs are. People call carbs pasta, and potato, for example, is not carb. But the point being, we all very often have this reductionist mindset where we think that, coffee is just about caffeine. But there are like hundreds and hundreds of different compounds in coffee as a drink besides caffeine that have different effects on our brain and our health and our gut. And so we always need to keep that in mind, that reality is actually more complex than just one single nutrient or one single aspect of whatever it is we're trying to research, improve, or explore. And now to weight loss. I just mentioned that people go on low carb diet, reduce carbohydrates, and then they think that's why there is such a huge effect. And some people just reduce carbs, but make everything stay the same. So the quality of the diet stays kind of poor, and their lifestyle also, and they don't get that many benefits, right? So everything is more complex in reality, not just one thing. So this is article, The Challenge of Maintaining Weight Loss, Understanding the Brain's Role in the Set Point. A recent review of 29 studies on long-term weight loss has revealed a disheartening reality. Over half of the weight lost through diet is recovered within a couple of years, with over 80% regained within 5 years. The findings highlight the real challenge of not just losing weight, but also maintaining it in the long run. And when I talk about weight loss, I always say to people, your success is losing weight and keeping the weight loss. Going up and down, it's not success. I don't know, it's like having more food, having less food, having a little bit more money, but then spending all of that money. What's the difference? The success is to keep the result. And what diet industry showed us is the diet industry didn't teach us how to keep that weight. And back to the idea of set point. So the concept is, it's not like hard science, but researchers say that they speculate that the brain has the ability to sense what your usual weight is. And when the weight goes down, your brain uses different mechanisms, like increasing your hunger, for example, or changing certain hormonal environment. So the brain has certain mechanisms to actually get you back to your usual weight when you lose the weight. Why is that? Well, because for the brain, losing weight is actually danger, because you're losing your energy reserves, and not having enough energy to support brain's function and function of other organs can lead to death faster than anything else. And so the brain monitors your weight very closely. And what it seems is traditional dieting, just cutting your calories, but leaving the rest of your quality of your diet and lifestyle the same, just cutting calories or cutting, for example, carbs, does not seem to produce the effect of losing weight and keeping weight. Your brain will do its best job to then make you gain weight again. But what seems to produce a difference when it comes to resetting this set point of your weight is changing the quality of your diet first and foremost, meaning eating better, eating essential nutrients, everything that your body and brain need to function, doing that consistently, not cutting a huge amount of different nutrients and calories for a couple of weeks, like losing a ton of weight. What seems to work is changing your lifestyle, is starting to exercise, improving your sleep quality. That seems to work for lowering your body weight set point. So when you lose the weight, you actually are not hungry to gain that weight back. And what I notice and what I teach in my lean brain framework, what I teach to people is I teach them how to improve the quality of everything that they do and how to rewire the brain, so to speak, to be less hungry, to support your weight loss efforts and to help you to maintain your weight, resetting that set point. And some of that is based on really good science. Some of that is what I experienced while working for a decade as a weight loss coach. Some of that is from my personal experience. But if you follow my 5-step system that has to do with also stress management, emotional management, circadian rhythm regulation, sleep quality, when you follow the system, what I noticed, what worked for people is people lose weight and they never get it back again. They're just not hungry to gain it back. And I did that for myself, for many clients of mine. And I also have a Facebook group that's called a Low Dopamine Diet. But the principles are all about rewiring your brain to help you to maintain the weight loss that you do. Because again, what's the purpose of losing weight if you regain all of it back over and over and over again and just wasting a lot of energy and time? So that's about weight loss. Bullet number 3, brainy bullet, our brain and use number 3. That's kind of like an umbrella of several things a couple of things that I wanted to tell you about loneliness. So the first piece of research, neurosciencenews.com, sense of purpose may shield against loneliness. Summary, a sense of purpose in life, irrespective of its nature, can be a robust defense against loneliness. So this study was done with 2,300 Swiss adults, and they found fewer instances of loneliness among individuals who led a purposeful life. And by purposeful life, folks, they found it can be anything that gives you this sense of purpose, this sense of movement from one day to another with something connecting that moment. So your days don't just happen, but there is like a theme that you are engaged in something that brings the feeling of progression in your life, of connectedness, of all of that. And that can be volunteering, that can be helping out your family, your friends, that can be doing a hobby that gives you a sense of purposeful growth. That can be anything, but what they found is exactly that people who have this feeling of purpose, doesn't matter how many friends they have, doesn't matter whether they have a big social network or a small one, or they have just a couple of friends, or also it doesn't matter in reverse, meaning if somebody has a lot of friends, they can still feel lonely. So what research showed is that people who have that feeling of purpose coming from something that they do regularly don't feel as lonely. And back to loneliness, that I found actually interesting. Again, neurosciencenews.com, loneliness alters brain processing unique to each individual. So they brought in those students and they gave them a questionnaire about how lonely they felt they were. And then they made them watch some movies and listen to some sentimental music and measuring how their brain was processing all these different stimuli. And so they found is that people who reported themselves as being lonelier, their processing was vastly different from each other and from other participants who reported to be less lonely. And so the researchers concluded that loneliness changes the way the brain processes reality. But what I actually thought about that, what if people who process reality slightly or a lot differently do tend to be lonelier just because they feel, and that might be true, that nobody understands them? Wouldn't that be the case, that if I and you see reality in different ways, or just my view reality is vastly different from the experience of other people, and I can't connect because of that on our common view on reality, wouldn't I feel lonelier, feeling like just nobody understands me? Right? And so the researchers concluded that it's the loneliness that alters brain processing. And I thought maybe it's the other way around. Maybe people who process the world differently feel lonely because they cannot compare, they cannot share that experience with anyone else. So that was interesting, thought and piece of research, and just shows, how researchers and just different minds have different conclusions about the same piece of data, right? You can think that loneliness causes or alters different brain processing of reality. And you can think it's the other way around, that people who process the world differently do feel lonely. Now, the last piece of news, here I'm going to give you a few pieces of news, a few pieces of research to think about. And it has to do with gut microbiome and how you might look deeper into your diet, because it can actually change the quality of your life, the way you interact with the world dramatically. So the news or the research, gut instincts, microbes' role in autism revealed. Summary: a new study provides novel insights into the relationship between the human microbiome and autism. Using an innovative computational approach, researchers reanalyzed previous data sets, finding a unique microbial signature in autistic individuals that could help distinguish them from neurotypical individuals. The study not only sheds light on the puzzling biological roots of autism, but also emphasizes the need for future in-depth long-term research. The key facts and the key kind of cool thing from the study, folks, is that they found that people with specific neurosignature, people who are more on an autistic spectrum, have a very distinct microbial signature in their gut. So their gut microbiome is different from people without the autistic spectrum. And that made me think about my personal anecdote. When I was a kid, I really had difficulty connecting with people around me. It was difficult to make friends. Like, I just felt, again, that sense of seeing the world differently, and I couldn't connect with kids around me and people around me. And my diet was not the best diet, not the most diverse diet. I had a lot of food preferences. There were not, essentially not a lot of vegetables, not a lot of fatty fish, not a lot of essential nutrients. And on top of that, again, I seem to be not tolerating a lot of different foods. And so my diet was very peculiar. And that's what I also noticed with people who I know personally with on autism spectrum is their diets are very peculiar. Like, they don't tolerate a lot of foods. They have a lot of food preferences. They're very picky eaters. And that's probably because what we know, our gut bacteria actually makes us crave certain foods. So when you feel like you crave foods, actually your gut bacteria crave that. But reverse, folks, and here's back to the power of you changing that environment and changing that outcome. Reverse is also true. When you change your gut bacteria, the way your brain works changes. And that can change. For example, somebody, maybe, autism spectrum will not be completely reversed and make you completely normal, but it's gonna make such a profound difference in how you're gonna then interact with the world and how your life experience is gonna go. So back to my personal anecdote. When I changed my diet in my mid to late 20s and I started traveling. I went to US, I went to Southeast Asia, I went to all these different places. And then I started to learn more and more about nutrition, about integrative health, and whatever, limited data we had about the gut microbiome. I started to introduce more and more different foods. Like I started to eat fatty fish, a lot of vegetables, a lot of different nuts and seeds, and beans and lentils. And I introduced all these foods that I didn't eat. And I didn't measure my gut microbiome, unfortunately, but I bet it changed. And most importantly, you know what changed? My personality. Before, I used to feel like I don't connect with a lot of people. Now I find it's actually quite easy for me to connect with people, understand their differences, understand their, special world processing. And it became really easy for me to connect with people. And I get pleasure from that. A friend of mine who is on autism spectrum, he described social connections as being stressful. And if I were to, look back into my experience, that's how I would describe it as well when I were a kid, a teenager. But now, I actually find social connections very joyful, very interesting, and I crave them. So that has completely changed. And what changed is my diet, completely changed. And I'm also not as picky eater. Yes, I eat healthy, but I eat I eat dairy, gluten doesn't bother me. Like nothing really bothers me. I mean, junk food is junk for everyone. It makes everyone feel like crap. But outside of that, my tolerance for different foods changed. I eat carbs, I eat fats, I eat everything. And also I don't have this insatiable cravings. So many things changed because I changed my diet. And my personality changed. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now when I'm in public, I don't feel nervous. Yeah, it's kind of like, when you meet a lot of different people, it's still, you feel a little bit awkward, but I don't feel nervous. It feels comfortable. It doesn't feel stressful. And I seek out those novel social experiences. So that's the power I want you to understand you have. Yes, people on autism spectrum might have a very distinct microbial signature, but maybe they can also change it and by doing that, change how their brain processes the world. As we can see from some of the research, and the way we process the world will change the way we feel in this world, and probably will change what we do. Like, who knows what would happen if I never changed my diet and my psychological profile would remain the same. Definitely feels better right now, much less stress and much more joy. And I think I just wanted to finish this episode with chocolate cravings. So a study published in the journal that has a proteome research looked at 20 men. 11 were categorized as chocolate indifferent and 11 who were chocolate desiring, in other words, chocolate lovers. Researchers analyzed the men's blood and urine for byproducts and found that the metabolic profiles of the two groups were different. One of the most interesting findings was that the urine samples showed different intestinal flora in the two groups. One type of flora feasts on chocolate. They grow and fermented, producing compounds that are anti-inflammatory too. Other types of flora do not exhibit this preference for chocolate. What this means is that if you are a chocoholic, you may be programmed to love chocolate based on the activity and makeup of your gut bacteria. So folks, whatever gut bacteria you have, whatever gut bacteria you cultivate by feeding them certain foods, I'm definitely a chocolate lover. Such a chocolate lover that I eat 30 to 50 grams of darkest chocolate every single day. My gut bacteria is the most chocolate loving, and that's actually been since I was a kid. So your love of chocolate, may be based on your gut bacteria, but the reverse, folks, is also true. By choosing different foods for, most of the gut bacteria actually have very short life life cycle, like 72 hours and often even less. So if you eat something for like 3 weeks, completely different diet, and you eliminate, that's the power of complete elimination. You eliminate some food, like some junk food, for example, for the whole 3 weeks, not eating it again for those whole 3 weeks. You eliminate it. You actually will kill off a lot of bacteria that was feeding on that, and by doing so, you will reduce cravings for that type of food. That just like if I, for example, probably would stop eat chocolate, at some point all the bacteria would die there, and I would not have such a chocolate love. This is actually from the book Why I'm So Hungry, and it's written by neuroscientists and nutritionists. So let me continue. This isn't necessarily bad news, however. Scientists have studied the benefits of dark chocolate for years, and its health perks are wonderful, from boosting heart health and promoting better blood flow to increasing insulin sensitivity. Dark chocolate in moderation has an impressive resume. One of the dark chocolate real standouts, and quite possibly the reason for its other attributes, is that it can nourish good gut bacteria. It's kind of like a prebiotic, folks. In a study published in Nutrients, volunteers who consumed antioxidant-rich cacao for 4 weeks experienced significant increase in populations of gut rock stars, bifidobacteria and lactobacillus, those good ones, that we eat in probiotics, in our yogurts. Also, beneficial bacteria can ferment dark chocolate into short-chain fatty acids that actually, folks, nourish our gut lining, making it healthy, helping the gut to get the nutrients in and keep the invaders and bad stuff out. So chocolate actually boosts your gut health. Would you think so? Probably not something that gut specialists tell you, but that's of course only goes to dark chocolate. Dark chocolate, even when it comes to dark chocolate, look at the ingredient list. It should have some cacao solids, maybe cacao butter, and maybe if you eat less dark chocolate, like I usually eat 100%, there might be some sugar, and that's ideally it. Some cocoa and some sugar, and that's what dark chocolate needs to become dark chocolate. All the other stuff, if you see a lot of other ingredients, that is not good quality dark chocolate. That's just the manufacturer trying to reduce its cost, adding a bunch of stuff. Some of that is not gut friendly. That makes counteract the dark chocolate positive benefits on your gut. So just make sure you get the good quality. If you need advice, I once had a chocolate company. I can give you advice in your area where you can purchase good quality chocolate. It's super easy to do that kind of research. So back to our gut and your power of change it. And by changing that, change the processing your brain does of reality. And that means you're going to perceive the world around you better, different, more joyfully. So realize that power, and what you put on your plate is going to change who you are. I will do this statement. More and more research is coming out saying exactly that. But of course, scientists are less enthusiastic and always say, maybe, we don't know. So let them be more cautious. I'm not that person. Change your diet, change your life, folks. And also your food preferences, like being picky, might not be the best thing for you, believe it or not. Increasing the range of foods is kind of like increasing the range of experiences in your life. They make you a richer person, meaning your personality traits, how you interact with the world, the richness of your experience. So again, being a picky eater and eating just a few foods, don't wear it as a badge of honor, folks. It might be putting you at a disadvantage with the version of yourself that you can be when you introduce more diversity of foods. And that works because with more diversity of foods comes more diversity of gut microbiome. And that we know is a hugely positive trait, having more diverse gut microbiome. If anything that gut experts agree on is that diversity is good, unless the diversity that eats junk foods, then it might not be as good. So starve your junk-eating bacteria and cultivate some good ones. So that's it, folks. That's what I wanted to share with you. I hope you found a lot of insightful pieces of research that made you think differently about your nervous system, about your gut, about weight loss, about your morning coffee. For me, what I learned, a little bit more of a ranting, what I learned, I'm like, well, the benefits of cognitive benefits from coffee might not be coming from caffeine. So maybe I'll switch to decaf and improve my sleep by doing so, as some researchers speculate what might happen. So let me try this experiment, right? Every piece of data, think about that and think about what can I do differently in my life to reap the benefits of that. And I've been definitely applying that in health, in fitness, in nutrition. And now I need to do more of that in business, reading business books and applying that to actually change the outcome. Realize that you have this power, folks. Use the knowledge today. Re-listen to this podcast episode. And one more thing, folks, if you love this podcast, if you find them useful, if they change something in your life, then please do one favor for me. Rate, share, review, anything and everything to help this podcast to spread. I don't do any ads. I don't do much of, any sorts of marketing. The only marketing is the word of mouth. So if you find these episodes useful, if they change something in your life, then please do help me to spread it around, to grow our tribe, to help more people. That would mean a world to me. And on that note, if you have any questions, reach out, Angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com. Maybe that focus class, you'll also like to attend it. Reach out, spread the news, share this podcast, and have an awesome week ahead. Perhaps eat some of that dark chocolate to cultivate the kind of bacteria that will make your life experience richer. Talk to you soon. Have an awesome week, folks.